Welcome to Curiosity Sanctum, where the unexplained becomes explored. If you enjoy mysteries, don't forget to like and subscribe. Throughout Earth's long and tumultuous history, there have been moments when everything changed in the blink of an eye. Not over centuries, not over decades, instantly. This is the story of one such moment. Roughly 12,800 years ago, something happened that brought the world to its knees. The skies ignited, the ground trembled, and entire ecosystems collapsed under the weight of an event so devastating, its echoes are still found in the very soil beneath our feet. This is the Younger Dryas Cataclysm, a sudden and brutal return to Ice Age conditions after the planet had begun warming from the last glacial period. It was not a slow reversal, it was abrupt, violent, and global. For years, scientists have tried to understand what could have triggered such a dramatic climatic whiplash. For decades, the dominant theory pointed toward the disruption of oceanic currents, specifically the Atlantic meridional overturning circulation, caused by an influx of glacial meltwater into the North Atlantic. But in 2007, a controversial new hypothesis challenged this narrative. A team of researchers proposed that the cause might not have been earthly at all, but cosmic. Led by Dr. Richard Firestone, Dr. Alan West, and Dr. James Kennett, the team put forward the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, suggesting that Earth collided with the remnants of a massive disintegrating comet. According to their theory, fragments of this ancient comet entered Earth's atmosphere, exploding above the vast ice sheets of North America, or impacting directly into them. The result would have been nothing less than apocalyptic. Explosions of this magnitude would ignite wildfires spanning entire continents. The skies would fill with smoke and soot, blocking the sun, plunging the planet into a sudden and prolonged darkness known as an impact winter. Temperatures would plummet, crops would fail, megafauna would die off in droves. At archaeological sites across North America, Europe, and the Middle East, scientists began to find intriguing evidence. Layers rich in nanodiamonds, formed under immense pressure and heat. Microspherules, tiny glass beads created in extreme temperatures. Elevated levels of iridium and platinum, elements more common in asteroids and comets than on Earth's surface. The Greenland ice cores added more fuel to the theory. Core samples from this period reveal spikes in soot, dust, and platinum, alongside a precipitous drop in temperatures, one of the most rapid climatic reversals in Earth's history. These findings suggest not a gradual internal Earth process, but a sudden violent event from the sky. The evidence for vast, uncontrollable wildfires is among the most compelling. Charcoal layers from this period appear not only in North America, but across Europe and even parts of the Middle East. These weren't isolated blazes. They were firestorms on a continental scale, turning rich grasslands and forests into barren ash fields. This apocalyptic inferno would have sent billions of tons of carbon into the atmosphere, intensifying the climatic catastrophe and suffocating life across the northern hemisphere. This sequence of events mirrors the scenario scientists fear most today. A cosmic impact triggering environmental, biological, and societal collapse. Perhaps the most tragic consequence of this event was the mass extinction of Earth's megafauna. In North America alone, over 35 species of large mammals vanished within a span of mere decades. The towering Columbian mammoth, the giant ground sloth, the short-faced bear, the American lion, all gone. For years, these extinctions were attributed solely to overhunting by early humans, a theory known as the overkill hypothesis. But the synchronicity of the Younger Dryas onset, the extinction of megafauna, and the sudden collapse of ecosystems challenges this notion. It is now clear that the environment itself turned hostile, making survival for both beasts and humans nearly impossible. The impact wasn't limited to the animal kingdom. Human cultures, too, suffered devastating losses. The Clovis culture, once thought to be the first technologically advanced society in North America, disappears from the archaeological record during this period. Their iconic fluted spear points found across the continent cease to appear. their settlements vanish. While some survivors may have adapted, migrated, or merged with other groups, the loss of the Clovis culture stands as a chilling reminder of how quickly complex societies can be erased by planetary-scale disasters. But the Clovis were likely not the only casualties. Alternative theorists propose that other, perhaps more sophisticated cultures may have existed prior to the younger Dryas, only to be obliterated without leaving clear archaeological traces. Could the true origins of civilization lie buried beneath layers of ash and mud, waiting to be uncovered? This is the question we will explore in the next chapter of our investigation. In the aftermath of the cataclysmic events that ignited the younger Dryas, Earth became an alien world to its inhabitants. The skies darkened, the temperature plummeted, and ecosystems that had flourished during the brief warming period leading out of the Ice Age were shattered. This was not a slow extinction. This was an environmental collapse on a planetary scale, unfolding within decades, if not years. Evidence from archaeological sites across the Middle East, such as Abu Huraira, reveals a stark transition in human behavior during this period. Communities that had gathered wild cereals and begun small-scale cultivation reverted to a harsher existence centered on hunting and foraging. Bones from this period show increased signs of malnutrition, injuries from interpersonal violence, and shortened lifespans. There is also evidence suggesting that these chaotic times may have contributed to the birth of new cultural and spiritual frameworks. Faced with an inexplicable, terrifying collapse of their world, early humans began to weave narratives of cosmic punishment, divine wrath, and cleansing floods. The seeds of many flood myths, sun-darkening legends, and tales of angry gods bringing ruin to humanity may have been sown in these dark years of suffering. Some researchers even speculate that the younger Dryas acted as a crucible that shaped the survivors into the architects of the next great leap forward in human civilization. In regions like the Fertile Crescent, the post-catastrophe recovery appears to have fueled an explosion of technological and cultural innovation, including the establishment of Göbekli Tepe, often cited as the world's oldest known temple complex. Thus, while the younger Dryas was an age of darkness and extinction, it was also an age of transformation. In the crucible of catastrophe, new ways of life, new belief systems, and perhaps even the foundations of the first complex civilizations were forged, their roots entangled with the trauma and memory of a world turned suddenly, brutally hostile. In the wake of the younger Dryas cataclysm, those who survived faced a world unrecognizable from the one they had known. For early humans, survival demanded not only resilience, but also rapid adaptation to an environment that had turned hostile overnight. Communities that had once roamed vast, fertile plains teeming with life now found themselves trapped in landscapes reduced to frozen wastelands, scorched forests, or barren ash fields. Hunting the now extinct megafauna was no longer an option. The towering Columbian mammoth, the giant ground sloth, the American lion, all had disappeared, leaving a gaping void in both the food chain and the cultural practices built around them. Faced with extinction themselves, these early human groups were forced to abandon old patterns and seek refuge wherever the land still offered a glimmer of life. They became wanderers, nomads in search of what remained of the Earth's generosity. This initiated one of the greatest waves of human migrations in prehistoric history. Bands of survivors moved southward, toward equatorial regions where the climate remained marginally more hospitable. Others sought the coasts, drawn by the relative stability of marine ecosystems, or settled in river valleys where glacial meltwaters still fed the land, creating temporary oases in an otherwise desolate world. These refugia, as scientists call them today, became cradles of survival. The Fertile Crescent in the Middle East, the Nile Valley, parts of the Levant, these areas became strongholds for desperate human populations. In these zones, people learned to diversify their diets, shifting focus to smaller game, fish, birds, and wild plants. The once mighty hunters of megafauna became gatherers of seeds, tubers, and insects, scavengers of whatever the shattered landscape would yield. This dramatic change in subsistence strategies triggered a cascade of technological innovation. New tools were crafted to hunt smaller, faster prey. Snares, traps, and lightweight projectiles replaced the heavy spear points of the Clovis culture. Fishing techniques improved, with the development of nets, harpoons, and fishhooks, signaling a crucial shift toward aquatic resources. In some regions, evidence suggests the earliest experiments in plant cultivation began precisely in these desperate times. Yet, the struggle for survival did not only reshape technology, it reshaped society itself. Where once loose-knit hunter-gatherer bands had roamed the open plains, now more hierarchical and defensive social structures began to emerge. Competition over limited resources turned neighbor against neighbor, and archaeological records hint at an increase in violence during this period. Fortified settlements, once rare, began to appear, with evidence of palisades and defensive ditches, signs of a world where every grain of food, every trickle of water was contested. The physical trauma of survival was mirrored by a profound psychological transformation. Faced with forces beyond comprehension, early humans turned to the spiritual realm to make sense of their suffering. Skies that had once been a source of wonder now became a symbol of dread. Many researchers propose that the collective trauma of this cataclysm may have given birth to new forms of ritual, myth, and belief systems centered on appeasing vengeful gods or celestial forces. It is in these dark centuries that the seeds of cosmological obsession appear to take root. Cultures began to erect monuments aligned with the stars and solstices, perhaps as attempts to regain control over an unpredictable sky, or as desperate prayers to whatever forces might be watching from above. Sites like Göbekli Tepe, constructed not long after the younger Dryas, bear witness to this newfound reverence for the heavens, blending art, spirituality, and survival into a complex cultural response to a shattered world. Despite the overwhelming odds, humanity endured. Through relentless adaptation, innovation, and perhaps sheer stubbornness, they carved out new ways of living from a planet that seemed determined to erase them. These survivors would eventually lay the foundations for the civilizations to come. But the memory of the darkness, the cold, and the chaos would linger, encoded in myths, rituals, and collective memory, echoing through the ages as cautionary tales of what happens when the world turns against its children. In the wake of the younger Dryas cataclysm, as human societies struggled to rebuild their shattered world, they did more than adapt physically. They sought meaning. Across continents, in the silence left by the collapse, humans turned to storytelling to process the trauma of their collective near-extinction. Out of this darkness emerged some of humanity's most enduring myths. Stories of floods, of divine punishment, of worlds cleansed and reborn through water. These tales are not isolated. They appear in cultures separated by vast oceans, across disparate continents and languages. Their universality suggests that they may be echoes of a shared, global catastrophe burned deep into the human psyche. Perhaps the most famous of these stories is the biblical tale of Noah's Ark. In it, humanity is punished for its sins by a vengeful God who sends a flood to wash the earth clean. But long before the Hebrew Bible, similar tales were told in ancient Mesopotamia. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest known written texts, recounts the story of Utnapishtim, a man warned by the gods to build a boat to survive a flood meant to destroy mankind. The Sumerians, Akkadians, and Babylonians all told variations of this flood narrative, often linking the event to divine retribution. Further east, in India, Hindu texts speak of Manu, a man forewarned of an impending deluge by a fish, an avatar of the god Vishnu, who instructs him to build a vessel to save himself and the sacred seeds of life. In China, the legend of Gunyu describes catastrophic floods and the desperate efforts to tame them, while Native American tribes such as the Hopi recount a great deluge that wiped clean the world, sparing only those who took shelter in the safety of underground realms. Even in the remote islands of the Pacific, flood myths persist. In Polynesia, tales speak of rising seas that consumed entire lands, forcing people to flee to higher grounds or take to the oceans. In Africa, myths from Nigeria to South Africa recall floods sent by angry gods, intended to punish human arrogance or cleanse the world of wickedness. What is striking about these stories is not just their global reach, but their core elements. Nearly all of them speak of an advanced time, a golden age, abruptly ended by a watery cataclysm. Survivors, often warned by supernatural beings, preserve fragments of their old world, ensuring that life continues in a new, purified world order. Could these stories be distant, mythologized memories of the younger Dryas catastrophe? Some researchers believe so. They argue that the end of the last ice age brought with it dramatic rises in sea levels, over 120 meters globally, as melting ice sheets poured into the oceans. Low-lying coastal areas which may have been home to early, now-lost human settlements were drowned. These floods, occurring over generations, would have seemed apocalyptic to those experiencing them, feeding into oral traditions passed down through millennia. Throughout history, humans have looked to the skies and the earth beneath their feet, searching for patterns, signs that the world moves not in a straight line but in cycles. Cycles of creation and destruction, of birth, death, and rebirth. For those who lived through the younger Dryas, the Cataclysm was not just an isolated tragedy. It was, perhaps, the latest turn of an ancient wheel, one that had spun countless times before and would turn again. This belief in cyclical time is deeply rooted in many of the world's oldest cultures. To the ancient Hindus, history unfolded in vast cosmic epochs known as yugas, cycles of virtue and decline, culminating inevitably in cataclysm and renewal. According to Hindu tradition, the current era, Kali Yuga, is a dark age, destined to end in fire, flood, and chaos before a new golden age is born. This mirrors, in chilling detail, the pattern of sudden collapse and rebirth seen at the end of the last ice age. Similarly, the Maya civilization of Mesoamerica envisioned time as a great cosmic wheel. Their long count calendar spoke of multiple creations and destructions, with the gods periodically resetting the world after periods of corruption, hubris, or imbalance. Their myths tell of previous worlds destroyed by fire, flood, and monsters from the sky. Tales that, once more, echo the geological scars of the younger Dryas and other prehistoric cataclysms. Among the Hopi of North America, the belief in world ages is equally prominent. According to Hopi teachings, humanity has already lived through 3 worlds, each destroyed due to the moral decay of its inhabitants. First by fire, then by ice, then by floods. We now live in the 4th world, watched closely by the spirits, awaiting our choices to determine whether we too will bring about our own end. These myths, scattered across continents and cultures, seem to point toward a universal human recognition. That civilization is fragile. That nature is cyclical, not linear. That the world, for all its seeming permanence, can and will change, sometimes slowly, but often with violent, world-shattering force. In recent decades, some scientists and philosophers have begun to take these ancient cycles more seriously, albeit through a modern lens. The geological record is now filled with evidence of repeating cataclysms, asteroid impacts, supervolcanoes, abrupt climate shifts, solar storms. These events, occurring not randomly, but with a certain frequency, suggest that Earth's history is punctuated by periods of chaos and reset, often reshaping the biosphere and human societies alike. Some researchers point to the work of Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock, who argue that catastrophic cycles are not just myth, but observable patterns tied to astronomical phenomena, such as Earth's passage through meteor streams like the Taurid complex, believed by some to have triggered the younger Dryas. Though these ideas remain controversial, they reignite age-old questions. Is humanity forever caught in an endless loop of growth, hubris, collapse, and rebirth? And if so, are we nearing the end of yet another cycle? These ancient stories were not merely tales meant to frighten children or explain natural disasters. They were warnings, encoded wisdom from those who had seen the wheel turn before, and feared it would turn again. Perhaps the greatest lesson the younger Dryas offers us is not only how close we came to extinction, but how easily we forget. How each new generation assumes the stability of their world is eternal, and how, when the skies darken once more, those ancient stories of fire, of flood, of cosmic reckoning will once again feel terrifyingly real. As we unravel the story of the younger Dryas Cataclysm, it is tempting to see it as a distant chapter of Earth's violent prehistory, a nightmare confined to the ancient past. But to do so would be a mistake, for the echoes of that event still reverberate in our world today, not only in the layers of ice and soil, but in the patterns of our behavior, the blind spots of our civilization, and the fragile systems upon which we depend. Scientists warn that the very forces that once plunged the Earth into chaos have not gone away. They remain, patient and indifferent, lurking in the cosmos and within our own climate systems, waiting for the right alignment of circumstances to strike again. One of the most immediate parallels is the current destabilization of Earth's climate. As greenhouse gas emissions soar and temperatures rise, the Greenland and Antarctic ice sheets are once again melting at alarming rates, injecting vast quantities of fresh water into the oceans, particularly into the North Atlantic, where it threatens to disrupt the same Atlantic meridional overturning circulation, AMOC, that may have played a role in the younger Dryas deep freeze. Recent studies suggest that the AMOC is already weakening, bringing with it the specter of more extreme weather, rising seas, and potential regional collapses in agriculture and biodiversity. At the same time, the cosmos remains as perilous as ever. Earth still crosses the torrid meteor stream, a complex field of debris left by a disintegrated comet, the very same celestial body that some researchers believe triggered the younger Dryas impact. Near-Earth objects are regularly detected, and sometimes missed, reminding us that the sky can still bring fire, just as it did 12,800 years ago. But perhaps the most dangerous threat is not in the skies or the oceans. It is in ourselves, in our tendency to forget, to ignore, to believe that progress renders us immune to the mistakes of the past. Like the Clovis culture, or perhaps older, lost civilizations, we live under the comforting illusion that our technology, our knowledge, our towering cities and digital empires can shield us from the forces of nature. Yet the geological record is a graveyard of civilizations that thought the same. We see the warnings around us: collapsing ecosystems, mass extinctions, raging wildfires that mirror the continent-spanning infernos of the younger Dryas, unprecedented droughts turning fertile lands into deserts. Still, our response is often one of indifference, denial, or distraction. This is why the story of the younger Dryas is not just a tale of ancient catastrophe. It is a mirror held up to our time, reflecting our hubris, our vulnerabilities, and our refusal to heed the messages carved into the bones of the Earth. Throughout history, survivors of past catastrophes encoded their trauma into myths, stories of angry gods, of floods sent to punish the arrogance of mankind. They did not tell these stories merely to explain what had happened. They told them to warn the future, to remind their descendants that the forces that once wiped them from the Earth could do so again. But perhaps the ultimate tragedy is that these warnings, over time, became folklore. Their lessons dulled by the passing centuries turned into bedtime stories, disconnected from the cold, hard truths of planetary history. Today, we stand at the precipice of another potential turning point. The question is not whether Earth will survive. It always does. The question is whether we will. Whether we will listen to the whispers from the past and take action to protect our fragile civilization. Or whether we will, like those before us, be reduced to another forgotten layer in the geological record, leaving behind only shattered monuments, ghost cities, and myths of a once great people who fell to their own blindness. Perhaps the greatest gift the younger Dryas offers us is not fear, but clarity. A reminder that the world is not static, that cycles of destruction and renewal are written into the fabric of existence. But unlike our ancestors, we now have the tools to predict, to mitigate, to prepare. The only question that remains is, Will we choose to act? Or will we wait, as the skies darken once more, for history to repeat itself?